Picture this. You wake up one morning and everything has changed forever. Your water isn't safe, the air burns your lungs, your life savings have vanished, and the company you trusted knew it was going to happen all along. Today, we're diving into corporate scandals where billion-dollar companies made calculated decisions that destroyed millions of innocent lives. By the end, I'll reveal which scandal proves that the most devastating betrayals come from companies we trust with our most precious possessions. How far would you go to protect your family? Because the people in these stories thought they were doing just that right up until their world came crashing down. Welcome back, beautiful souls. I'm all about uncovering the truth behind stories that shaped our world. Today's topic will hit you right in the heart. Corporate scandals that shattered lives, destroyed communities, and left scars still healing decades later. Hit that subscribe button because these stories need to be told. These victims deserve to be remembered, and these corporations are counting on us to forget. Case 10, Union Carbide, Bhopal, 1984. December 3rd, 1984, Bhopal, India. The worst industrial disaster in history. Imagine sleeping peacefully when suddenly your eyes start burning. You can't breathe. Thousands of people stumble outside, gasping, terrified, running from an invisible enemy. Union Carbide had cut corners on safety at their pesticide plant. When toxic gas escaped, it swept through slums where the poorest families lived, claiming over 3,000 lives that first night and leaving hundreds of thousands with lifelong health problems. The company tried to blame their Indian subsidiary. They fought extradition. The CEO never spent a day in an Indian jail. Human lives became numbers on a balance sheet. Case 9, Rana Plaza Factory Collapse, 2013. April 24th, 2013, Bangladesh. The Rana Plaza building housed garment factories for major Western brands. When cracks appeared, workers begged not to go in. They were forced to work anyway. These were lifelines for families barely scraping by. Most workers were young women, the backbone of their households. At 8:45 a.m., the building collapsed. Over 1,100 people were trapped inside. Can you imagine the terror? The desperate mothers calling for daughters who never came home? Building inspectors had warned about structural problems, but profit margins mattered more than human safety. Case 8, Exxon Valdez oil spill, 1989. March 24th, 1989. The Exxon Valdez spilled 11 million gallons of crude oil into Alaska's pristine waters. This is about real people whose entire way of life was wiped out overnight. Third-generation fishing families woke to find their boats surrounded by black death. The fish were gone. Their children's inheritance, the sea itself, was poisoned. Exxon's cleanup was criticized as woefully inadequate and painfully slow. They fought compensation claims for decades. Many fishing families never recovered, losing their boats, homes, and cultural identity. Case 7, BP Deepwater Horizon, 2010. April 20th, 2010. 11 workers died when the Deepwater Horizon exploded. For 87 days, oil gushed into the Gulf of Mexico. Fishing communities watched their world turn black. Louisiana shrimp boat captains whose families had fished for 4 generations watched oil coat everything. The shrimp disappeared. Communities' economies collapsed overnight. BP ran ads showing clean beaches while real families developed respiratory problems and their boats sat unused. BP had ignored safety warnings and prioritized speed over safety. Case 6, Equifax data breach, 2017. The 2017 Equifax breach exposed 147 million people to identity theft. Imagine being a single mom doing everything right, paying bills on time, protecting your information. Then someone opens credit cards in your name, destroys your credit score. Your dream of buying a home, gone. Equifax executives knew about the breach for months before telling the public. During that time, 3 executives sold their company's stock, protecting their finances while leaving Americans vulnerable to financial predators. The betrayal was staggering. Case 5, Purdue Pharma opioid crisis. Purdue Pharma marketed OxyContin as safe for long-term use, knowing it was highly addictive. They told doctors it was less addictive than other options while patients became dependent within months. Think about Lisa, a construction worker who injured her back. Her doctor prescribed OxyContin. Within months, she was dependent on medication costing more than her mortgage. When it became unaffordable, she couldn't work without managing pain. She lost her job, her home, and eventually her children were placed with relatives. The Sackler family made billions while families fell apart. Internal documents show their disdain for suffering people, treating human misery as profit opportunities. Case 4. Nestlé Baby Formula Scandal. Nestlé's baby formula scandal spans decades. The pattern: exploit desperation, ignore consequences, prioritize profits over infant lives. New mothers in rural areas were told formula was superior to breast milk. Free hospital samples interfered with natural milk production. When samples ran out, mothers had to buy formula they couldn't afford with unsafe water. The result? Malnutrition, disease, heartbreak. Babies who could have thrived on breast milk suffered because a corporation convinced mothers that artificial was better. Nestlé knew about unsafe water and poverty that forced dangerous formula dilution. But they also knew desperate mothers would find money somehow. Case 3. Ford Pinto cover-up, 1970s. Ford discovered their Pinto had a fuel tank flaw causing fires in rear-end collisions. They calculated the fixed cost, $11 per car. They also calculated lawsuit costs from victims. They decided lawsuits were cheaper than fixes. Imagine your daughter trapped in a burning car after a minor collision. She survives with burns covering most of her body, facing years of surgeries and permanent disfigurement. Ford had crash test data and cost-benefit analyses, treating lives as dollar figures. Internal memos valued human life at $200,000. Your life, your daughter's life, worth less than a luxury car. Case 2. Union Pacific toxic spill, 1991%. July 14, 1991, Union Pacific's train derailed near California's Sacramento River, spilling 19,000 gallons of pesticide. This ecological apocalypse destroyed one of the country's most pristine river systems. Native American tribes who had fished these waters for thousands of years watched salmon runs disappear overnight. Guide services closed permanently. The chemical killed everything in its path. Fish floating belly up for miles. Birds dying on riverbanks. Union Pacific minimized damage, fought compensation claims, and shifted blame while people dependent on the river picked up the pieces. Case 1. TEPCO and Fukushima, 2011. March 11, 2011. The earthquake and tsunami were natural disasters, but Fukushima was human-made negligence. Tokyo Electric Power Company had ignored safety warnings, falsified inspection reports, and cut corners for years. Entire communities evacuated with only the clothes on their backs. Dairy farmers whose families had worked the same land for 5 generations lost everything in one day. Cows were left behind. Farmhouses sat empty in exclusion zones. Children's inheritance became radioactive soil. TEPCO had been warned by their own engineers, but upgrading safety systems was expensive and cutting corners was profitable. So here we are. I promised to reveal which scandal shows how devastating betrayals come from companies we trust with our most precious possessions. That's Equifax, because they weren't handling our environment or health. They held our identities, our financial futures, our ability to build the lives we dreamed of. When Equifax failed, they stole something fundamental. Our trust in systems meant to protect us. We trust companies with our most precious assets every day. Let me know in the comments which story affected you most. These victims deserve to be remembered, and their stories deserve to be told. Until next time, keep questioning, keep caring, and keep holding power accountable. You're amazing, and I'll see you in the next one.